let's talk about two-dimensional arrays. So two-dimensional arrays are taking something very simple that we've already used a lot, regular arrays, and saying, well, what if we combine them? So instead of making a list of ints, what if I made a list of ints? So real simply, if we imagine a normal array, so int array x equals a new int array, and let's say it's big enough for 4 spots, what I get is reference x to a list of 4 blocks, each of which can hold a single int. So this is really convenient if I said I had to hold 4 grades or 4 numbers for some reason. If I want to make it bigger, I just make that number bigger. I can hold more things. But what if I wanted to do something a little bit more complex? For example, what if I wanted to have a big grid, say like a chessboard or a checkers board, and be able to represent things on that big grid? Well, this isn't quite sufficient. But if instead of putting numbers in these boxes, if you could imagine putting lists in these boxes, now I've given myself the ability to store a lot more information, still with that same reference. So let's look at what this, or how this could be built. Instead of saying I'm going to make a single array, I'm just going to take these same square brackets and put them down twice. So now I'm making an array of ints. Let's call this my grid, and it equals new int array. We define it the same way, but now I need those 2 square brackets over here. And we'll put in 3 and 4 just to have some little difference. So just like before, x is a single reference, grid is a single reference. So I have this thing grid, which is a reference to this thing I just made, this two-dimensional array. But the two-dimensional array is easier to think about if you eliminate one first. So I still have an array of ints, and that array of ints is 4. All right, so let's put, I'm going to make it vertically this time. 1, 2, 3, 4. But I don't just have one of them, I have 3 of them. So I've actually made myself a horizontal array, 1, 2, 3, with 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. So now I have a grid that has 3 columns and 1, 2, 3, 4 rows. Although actually, we tend to think about it the other way. We tend to think about rows and columns. So let me just change that real fast so that it's not as confusing. Although in terms of how we're drawing this, it doesn't really matter. It's going to work the same way in either case. But this now has 3 rows, row 0, row 1, row 2, and 4 columns, column 0, column 1, column 2, column 3. So the way I drew this, it looks like a list of lists. But if you blur all these lines, you could say, well, hey, I have something here and here, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, and L. If I got rid of all these lines, what you would see is A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L. That looks like a grid. So we can treat this like a 3x4 grid. Now suppose, and we're using INSO or letters, why don't I just put this as a char array, just to be even more explicit about it. So let's say I have this char array, and I said, well, I want to get to this particular letter. This F, I don't want to be an F. I really want it to be a Q. Well, how do I get there? Because I can't say, grid equals Q. That doesn't work because grid is an array of chars. It's not a character. But I also can't say, grid 0 equals Q, because the 0th column is really a row, or the 0th row is really a column. So if I want to get to a particular place in the array, I now need to give it 2 coordinates, a row and a column. So if I wanted to get to that F, I need to put in 2 values. Now again, we have our rows 0, 1, 2, and our columns 0, 1, 2, 3. and F is at the position 1, 1. So if I put in 1, 1, I can now say go to this particular place in my grid and set the value to Q. What changes it? Now, two-dimensional arrays are really useful for a lot of different applications. If you think of an Excel spreadsheet or Google Sheets, it's a big giant grid. It's essentially a two-dimensional array. If you think about a checkers board or a chessboard, that's a two-dimensional array. So there's a lot of things that we can create using just a repackaging or doubling down of something we've already known how to work with. So there's a quick intro to two-dimensional arrays. I hope that you found it helpful. Bye now.